Hi, it's Jonathan here, and this month I've been thinking about some stuff that I wanted to share with you, and I wanted to give you some insight that maybe you could use as current industry intelligence in your daily meetings. Maybe you could integrate some of this stuff into your action items. I certainly hope so. You could use this as a view as to how to approach a new startup idea. Maybe there's something that you can use in the boardroom, maybe in the innovation discussions that you're doing, because Pulse is about illuminating business insight, and I'm hoping that this is useful and valuable. These are tools that you can actually use in your everyday business life and maybe personal life as well. So looking around the industry right now, from an automotive perspective, I was quite interested in Samsung's Autotech investment fund. Now, Samsung are a 174 billion US dollar turnover company, and their auto investment fund is around 300 million. And they've already spent a third of it on an Australian company called TT Tech. An Austrian company, I should say. And that who are awesome, by the way. But it's amazing that the reports, and there's a link that you'll see, is almost suggesting that Samsung are going super heavy into this. And yeah, they bought Harman, the audio company, and they're certainly making moves. But I'm not so certain whether or not spending 300 million out of a 174 billion dollar turnover is a heavyweight move into that. But of course, what's happening in the background, I think, is more along the lines of their own softwares. And maybe there's a software play that's happening that we can't see. The technology side is something that we can see more easily. But this looks a bit like a hedge to me. It looks like the creation of a hedge bet that some innovation needs to come from outside, which, by the way, I fully agree with. And so good for them for doing that. But out of 174 billion, 300 million to auto tech is not a massive commitment, in my opinion. But anyway, we'll see. Moving on to education. I've been looking at the great work that X Prize do. Now, I'm sure most of you know that X Prize is a fund that actually funds big ideas to help solve humanity's huge challenges. And it's announced the 5 winners from the Global Learning X Prize Fund. It's a $15 million initiative to find smarter ways to educate the world's children. And in this prize that's been running, there's 150 villages were chosen to be part of a test case for an awesome project looking to bring education to around 250 million children worldwide who can't read and write. I'm a big fan of what X Prize are doing in this. But why is it just happening from a private funded backing, and why not from a government funded backing as well, and from an international government funded backing? Why is it that we see these innovative education initiatives from disparate sources rather than actually a collective belief that to educate the people who are currently less educated is something that we all have a mission to do. So yeah, it's good, but could be much better, and I'm glad that at least X Prize and many other companies are looking into it. But I think we need a slightly higher, larger scale initiative. In terms of entertainment and media, I've been thinking about how blockchain will affect the media landscape, and there's an article by VentureBeat that is around the brilliant topic of how blockchain has arrived in the marketing landscape and is about to explode, with very little substance as to why or how that will happen. I mean, I have a view, and to be totally frank, I also have an interest in a blockchain solutions company called IOD. So from my perspective, the media and marketing landscape is going to be shaken to bits using blockchain. The article doesn't necessarily cover that, but what is useful that the article mentions is that the ability to make things transparent in the media flow of where the middlemen are, and the intermediaries, where do they sit and how much margin disappears through them. The advantage of the blockchain is that transparency and trust is enabled, and the media landscape could do with a dose of that. From a financial perspective, from the banking and finance sector, I've been looking at how the global regulatory landscape is adapting around business models. And this particular article that you'll see is the European Central Bank suggesting that the financial technology companies and startups should have higher liquidity, have more cash, have a greater balance because of a greater risk. Now, what I find quite interesting is that a lot of the financial technology companies are actually establishing themselves because of the lack of transparency in traditional banking. And so it is slightly ironic that the new contenders are essentially potentially, being kind of stricken with tighter regimes. It's not necessarily these fintechs that need to be looked at. It's the slightly more established institutions that appear in the news, and they're the people that need to ensure that they're not lending 10 times more than they actually have from a customer. Anyway, so I found that interesting. In terms of fashion, the fashion perspective this month, I've been thinking about how artificial intelligence will affect the industry, and there's an article by the Technology Review, and inside the article, I must say that the headline is a lot more salacious than the reality, and it's all around basically Amazon and their AI and how Amazon's created this AI for fashion. Really what's happened is that one group of Amazon researchers, there's a lot of stuff going on, but one of the main parts is that one group of researchers based in Israel have developed a machine learning algorithm that can tell by a few images, a few labels on images, it can work out whether or not a particular design is considered to be stylish. And that could be used in terms of providing feedback or recommendations. And usually, the reason it's seen as innovative is that computers usually require extensive labeling in order to learn from visual information. And so that's some of the things that happen in Instagram, let's say uploads, or Snapchat. It's just like one label maybe. What this doesn't mention though is that is this the way that we want to see things as being stylish or not? Is it purely a logical algorithmic thing? Is it not an emotional thing as well? Does this not belie some creativity in humankind here? So yeah, it's great. I love the technology and big fan of everything that these companies do. But I'm wondering whether or not that's something that we need to have done. In terms of food, yum, and I'm just about to go to dinner here. I'm in Kuwait, and it's now 7 p.m, although it's 5 p.m. in my head in London time. But I was in Germany last week, which is an hour difference in between them, so I don't know. But anyway, food, yum. I'm wondering about how can the intelligent use of data affect the food supply chain, and where are the opportunities to innovate? And I've been looking at a report from February 2016, which there's a link to in this post. It is one of the most, no disrespect, it is not the most attractive PDF ever created on earth. I didn't do it, I promise. It's by people who actually know what they're talking about in terms of food and big data. But yeah, it's a horrible PDF. It's really badly designed, but it is packed full of absolutely brilliant stats and real world case studies and actual use cases. Packed full of data, actual examples, actual citations. And even though it's almost 2 years old, so it's February 16 it came out, almost 2 years old, I reckon it's absolutely brilliant. It's brilliant. It still is miles ahead of a lot of thinking. And I'm just quite questioning why a lot of people haven't actually acted upon this. So that's what I've been finding quite interesting from that side of things. Then, in terms of health, so I've been thinking about how virtual reality will become increasingly relevant in healthcare, and I've touched on this before, of course, in Pulse, but there's this Forbes article by someone who I really enjoy following online. He's a guy called Bruce Lee. Now, no, not the martial artist. His name's Bruce_Y_Lee. Now, Brucey Lee, that's on Twitter. He's awesome, and he writes about stuff that matters, I think. Big fan of his. And his Forbes article about VR in healthcare is spot on. Jam-packed full of information, real world cases, and you should all read it. If you're interested in virtual reality, even if you're not interested in the healthcare industry, you should read it anyway. But it matters. It matters. Read it. Now, in terms of manufacturing, the rise of smart manufacturing is always something that I find interesting. And you'll see a link from a site called Design News. And I'm interested in the Design News's coverage of the 11 things to watch out for in the new world of manufacturing. And one of the things that I find the most interesting is the 11th part, the 11th slide. So you'll hit the main page and you click over next until you get to the 11th. And the 11th slide is around cyber physical systems. And this is something which isn't spoken of as much as robotics and all that kind of stuff. But the cyber physical systems is the blend of real and digital. So CPS, as it's known in the trade, includes the integration of data computation, networking, and physical processes. So embedded computers and networks monitor and control the physical processes with feedback loops where physical processes affect computations and vice versa. So actually on slide 11 there's quite a neat drawing of this. But if you're into the manufacturing landscape, cyber physical is something that I think that's actually probably going to be one of the fastest growing parts of manufacturing, of smart manufacturing, out of all of the other slides. But anyway, you have been warned. Now on to retail. I've been thinking about how voice assistants will impact retail. I've been thinking about how the usage of Alexa and Google Voice and stuff will maybe knock into our retail world. And there's a study, there's a link from a company called Retail Dive that you've got now. There's one recent study from Tractica that's mentioned inside that link that forecast that 1.8 billion people with a B will be using digital assistants by 2021. And another from ComScore suggested voice searches will account for half of all internet searches within 3 years from now. Wow. So great. That evidently means that retail will definitely be affected. But I don't think it's going to be a technology, a one-off usage of technology that's going to win in voice assistants. I think it's actually the integration of the technology to all of the other bits. So for instance, if you have a voice search capability, that's great. But what about, so you use the voice search to do some shopping. Fine, got it. You purchase something. But then it's how that voice search function and the software links to then what you put into your kitchen, what you cook. So therefore, how the voice search lists can help you with creation of recipes. How the voice search then can, depending on the recipes and your kitchen and your design, work out your tableware requirements. And then depending on the tableware requirements and the space of your kitchen, the furniture. And then maybe if you're inside a furnished kitchen, maybe the heating of the kitchen and maybe the lighting of the kitchen and the link between all of these things and the music that you then put on. And that's how voice affects retail. It's not how it affects grocery shopping or how it affects supermarket basket size. It's how voice and actually how information and our personal preferences link together to enable a better experience. Just saying. So, second to last is technology. So in technology, this month I've been thinking about how AI can actually be used in a way that can be human controlled. And there's this article by VentureBeat. It's awesome. It's slightly biased actually, I think, but anyway, awesome article. It's really good by VentureBeat, entitled "Tech Giants Should Let People Pick Their AI Assistant's Personality." And the journalist is evidently really, really keen on the movie Her with the brilliant Joaquin Phoenix. It's a great movie, actually, Her, Human OS. And the journalist makes continuous parallels between AI and Her, because Her is about AI. The movie Her is about AI, an in-ear assistant who our main character Theodore falls in love with. But of course, Samantha, his AI, he doesn't actually start off falling in love with her. He uses this AI assistant as a cure for his loneliness. And it's interesting listening to Ashwin Ram from Amazon. It's the Alexa AI Senior Project Manager. And Ashwin says that yeah, it can cure loneliness, because they've been looking at the data of people's interactions with Alexa, and Ashwin said that people don't just yell commands at Alexa, they try and chat with her and joke with her, and they tend to see her not just as an assistant, but almost as a friend, as a family member. Now, I must admit, I read this and thought, wow, they kind of know quite a bit about what we're saying to Alexa, and of course that's the point. But I'm hoping that the only things that they actually store are what happens when you say the keyword, when you say Alexa or whatever you programmed it to. Yeah, I was just interested in the volume of insight about our emotional state that a voice assistant can have. But yeah, that's that's an entire half an hour video on its own, so I won't bore you with that. Moving on to telco. In the telco space, I almost always think about whether the tech companies who are deploying telco-like infrastructures spell a different future for telcos and what the communication landscape looks like. And there's this article by ZDNet, ZDNet. I can't believe I said ZDNet. I'm English, but it's okay. I'm international. ZDNet it is. And I think the article, which is about Microsoft subsea cabling, the thing that I find the most interesting about this article is that it's a combination of Microsoft, Facebook, and Telefonica who've put together this sub-transatlantic subsea cable with a data capacity of 160 terabits per second, and it's incredible. It's 4,000 miles long. It spans from Virginia Beach in Virginia, obviously, to Bilbao in northern Spain. And they finished laying the cable. It's going to be up and running in 2018. And I just think to myself, and Telefonica actually chose to do this. I think that a lot of telcos, not just from this case study, but other things I've been watching, I think they've given up. And they decided that, you know what, if we're going to be a dumb pipe, we're going to be a really fast dumb pipe. I just find it... I find it... I mean, it's great. It's brilliant, right? It's going to be 16 million times faster than your current broadband, right? But, yeah, that's a statement. Let's make sure that WhatsApp messages that don't touch any mobile networks billing system, well, they do just, but let's make sure that the voice over internet calls that we make can happen much better on our systems. Yeah, interesting. And finally, in terms of travel, I've been looking at the business opportunities in developing virtual travel experiences. Now, some of you pulsites have been looking at listening to my thoughts on this for a while now, but there's a VentureBeat article where there is an announcement. It's almost like a press announcement from HTC about how they're going to share all of the app revenue with developers. And the purpose, of course, is for them to drive the developer community to start building more and more apps. And Richard Steiber, the president of HTC's Viveport VR store, says, "The holiday is the most important time for developers, and we want to show our appreciation for them." which is great. But the thing is, is that it's kind of a bit like build it and they will come mentality. It's not necessarily just the developers that need to come. It's also actually the consumers, like the holiday makers. And yeah, where's the innovation in terms of how we track what experiences felt best and the ability to pre-book inside an experience or to virtually check in or the loyalty mechanisms. And I get the fact that those things, I guess, what the developers do. We just create the platform, we allow the developers to do it. But wouldn't it be nice if a platform also actually could think about what the consumer side is at the same time as the developers? Because maybe actually the consumers could give as many new ideas as the developers could. Maybe there's a maybe you don't need to be technically proficient to come up with a good idea about a virtual reality travel app. Who knows? Anyway, that's my thinking on travel. So that's it from me this month. Thank you for being on Pulse. If you think that anyone else would find this a benefit, please share the link with them, 10.io/Pulse. And as I said at the beginning, the way you could use this, I mean, it's up to you, but the way you could use this is to slide some of this information into the next meeting that you're in, to use the industry insight or the angles and your thinking together as your conversation starters. And maybe you can look at your strategies in contrast with some of these things and think, are we betting on the right things here? And yeah, hopefully this will be of benefit. And I shall see you next month virtually, where I will be telling you about what I've been looking at between now and then. And I'll see you then. Thanks, guys. Bye.